Okay, Bava Batra Nunchet Amud Aleph. So we spent the first, I guess it was 3-4 months of this year, doing the beginning of Bava Batra, because there's a lot of Agadata there in the first parak, second parak as well. And now there's it skips to the end of Chizkata, but in the end of the third parak, there's not very much Agadata, so we jumped all the way to Nunchet Amud Aleph. And here we're going to be learning a story, or a series of stories about somebody named Rabbi Batra. Okay, this is kind of the daf of Rabbi Batra. And we're going to see that there's interactions with him, with Me'arat HaMachpelah, and the people who were buried in Me'arat HaMachpelah. And then there's a story about Rabbi Batra, where he gets thrown into jail and he has to get rescued. And we'll learn that as well. And then we'll just look at some of the Mefarshim on kind of those two stories and try to understand some of the details around them. Okay? So the Gemara in Bava Batra Nunchet Amud Aleph starts as follows. Rabbi Batra haba kametzayin ma'arata. Okay, so he used to mark off graves. Okay, we'll see the Mefarshim, they try to understand what that means, but the understanding of most of the Rishonim is that means he would mark them off for the purposes of Kohanim or anyone who, had needed to be tahor for whatever reason, not to go to that area. Okay? So when he got to the grave of Avraham in Hebron, so he found Eliezer, it was just kind of, loitering around outside. The Kai Kamebava, he was waiting at the gate. He was the bouncer. So Amarle, Makavid Avraham. So Rabbi Batra asked Eliezer, what's Avraham doing? By the way, there's other midrashim that talk about who's still alive or went to Gan Eden alive. Remember we learned with Rabbi Shua ben Levi jumped into Gan Eden alive. There's midrashim that talk about a list of people.
You never get me.
Right. So Eliezer Eved Avraham is on that list as one of the people that never died. Okay. Anyway, leave that aside. In this story, he's clearly still around. So Rabbi Batra asked him, "What's Avraham doing?" Amar le gane bechanfe de Sarah v'kama aina le bereshe. So he's nestling up into Sarah's they're cuddling, Avraham and Sarah, and she's kind of like petting his head. Okay, so it's this imagery of this old couple in love in the grave. Yeah. Amar le zil ale bena kaya baba. So Rabbi Batra said to Eliezer, "Go tell him that I'm here. I'm here to measure the dimensions of the grave." So Amar le le'ol meida yedia dietzer b'hay amaleka. So he said, "You can go on your own and don't worry because there's no yetzer in that world. In other words, there's no issue of any sort of inappropriate thoughts for Avraham or Sarah in this instance." Okay, so ayel ayin unefak. So Rabbi Batra went and he measured the dimensions of the grave and he left. Ki mata le'me'arat Adam HaRishon. Who's buried in Me'arat HaMachpelah? Also Adam HaRishon is buried there. So he got to the grave of Adam HaRishon. יצתה בת קול ואמרה, הסתכלת בדמות דיוקני, בדיוקני עצמה אל תסתכל. So what does that mean? Right, you looked at my image, or the likeness of my image, in other words, Avraham Avinu, but don't you dare look at my actual image. In other words, Adam HaRishon, who was created b'tzelem Elokim. Okay? How about I know Tzerna Marta? So he says, I have to mark up the graves. I have a job to do. Okay? So, kemidat achitzona kach midat apnimit. So the measurement of the outside is the same as the
Teva.
Yeah.
I'm saying who hired him.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, but yeah. I don't know on whose dime he's doing this, but the answer of the Batkol, I think, is that the measurement of Adam HaRishon's grave is the same as Avram. So you knew what Avram's was, so it's the same thing. So you don't have to come in and measure it.
But maybe also chitzona.
Right, obviously there's depth to the story, right? Yes, of course. There's what to discuss on what's really going on here. We'll touch on some of the potential symbolism here. But yes, chitzona and pnimit. Uleman da'amar shnei batim zu lemal mizu. So there's a machloket. What does Me'arat HaMachpelah mean? Me'arat HaMachpelah, there's one opinion that says that, what is Mechpelah? Like a kefel is double. So one opinion says that they're one on top of the other. There was a Me'arat that had multiple floors. So according to that opinion, how do you understand Midat HaChitzona, kach Midat HaPnimit? So it means, Ki Midat Elyona, kach Midat HaTachtona. That's what it means. It means that the top and the bottom floor are the same dimensions. Okay, not so relevant, or not the main point. Amar Rabbi Bana. So then Rabbi Bana leaves and he testifies about this experience. And he says, Nistakalti b'shnei akevav. I glanced at the two heels of Adam Arishon. Right? I was not allowed to look at him, but I glanced at his heels. V'domim lishnei galgalei chama. And his heels looked like two orbs of the sun, two stars, in terms of their glory and brilliance. Okay? And then the Gemara says the following: Akol bifnei Sarah kekof bifnei Adam. Right? Just as a monkey is to a person, that's how all of people are to Sarah Imenu. Okay? Sarah bifnei Chava kekof bifnei Adam. And just as a monkey is to a person, is how Sarah Imenu was to Chava. In other words, Chava was much, much greater, whatever this comparison means. Okay? V'chava b'fnei Adam kekof b'fnei Adam. And Chava compared to her husband is like a monkey compared to a person. Adam b'fnei Shechina kekof b'fnei Adam. And Adam Arishon compared to the Shechina is like a monkey before a person. And then the Gemara continues. Shufra de Rav Kahana ke'en shufra de Rav. Shufra is beauty. So the beauty of Rav Kahana was like a semblance of Rav's beauty, but not quite as beautiful. Shufra de Rav me'en shufra de Rabbi Abau. Rav's beauty was like Rabbi Abau's beauty, but not quite there. Shufra de Rabbi Abau me'en shufra de Yaakov Avinu. This is a big jump, okay? And then the beauty of Rabbi Abau was like the beauty of Yaakov Avinu, but not quite there. Shufra de Yaakov Avinu me'en shufra de Adam Rishon. Yaakov's beauty was like Adam Rishon's beauty, okay? So that's the end of that first story.
Is Ayin like equal, or there is a...
Me'en, like a...
Part of it.
כמו מעין ברכות.
I mean, it's not the same, but it has some similarity
it's
to
a
it.
small part.
Yeah. Like me'en olam haba yom Shabbat menucha. Shabbat is not equal to olam haba, but it's a taste.
Here's a little bit.
Okay, so there's clearly a hierarchy here, right? And it's also obvious that the hierarchy is going backwards. In other words, the earlier generations were greater, less monkey-like, which which is ironic. What?
Oh, it is ironic.
Right. No, I understand. I'm saying the previous Piska says we are all compared to Sari Menu like monkeys. Sari Menu compared to Chava was like a monkey. In other words, the further back you go, the less monkey-like you are, the more human you are. So the irony is
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
right. No, it's
No, but Shufra is not the same as monkey.
no. I understand. You're right. It's two different teachings that have a similar theme. But I was just saying with the first teaching that Yerida Tadorot flies in the face of evolution. Okay, good.
Exactly the opposite.
Right, exactly. Right. So yeah, I think that's worth a shiur in of itself, but not for now. Okay, two short stories and then the second main story. Okay. So there was a magus, like a Zoroastrian priest. So he would go rummage around in the graveyard. I guess he was looking for treasures. Okay. Kimata amarata de Rav Tuvi bar Matna. He got to the grave of Rav Tuvi bar Matna. Tafse b'dikne. So Rav Tuvi bar Matna reached out from the grave and grabbed onto this priest's beard. Okay, Ata Abaye came. V'amarle b'matuta minach shavke and shivke, and he begged Rav Tuvi bar Matna to let this priest go. Okay, and he did. L'shana achariti hadarata. The next year, the priest came back and he did the same thing. He was rummaging around. Tafse b'dikne, and again Rav Tuvi bar Matna grabs his beard. Ata Abaye came again. He pleaded with Rav Tuvi bar Matna to let him go, but this time la shavke, he wouldn't let him go. So Abaye had to go get scissors and cut off the priest's beard so that he could get free from Rav Tuvi bar Matna.
What's the story?
Yeah.
So then he gets nowhere.
Okay, it's a good story. I'm not quite sure what the message is, but okay.
I firstly understood that he cut his beard off, so next year he can't catch him.
No, but it could grow back within a year.
It was that he could get free, but yeah.
This person with the beard.
To put an end to this.
Yeah.
And why is this swag?
Why is he grabbing his beard? It's a good question.
Now we wonder where all those movies
It's a good
Is
question.
it trying to show a lesson?
Yeah, it's definitely trying to show a lesson, but it's a good question. Okay.
Don't go to visit Kivrei Tzaddikim
with a beard.
With a beard. Okay, continuing. Third story. Hu da'amar luhu. Chavita da'afa l'chad barai, chavita da'gami l'chad barai, chavita
Where were we?
de'udra l'chad barai. Okay? So once a person was dying, and he was doing his last will and testament. So he said, a barrel of dirt to one son, a barrel of bones to another son, and a barrel of wool to my third son. Lo avayade mai kamarlu, but they had no idea what he had said, and then he died. So they didn't know how to divide up the inheritance. So Atu L'Kaimid Rabbi Bana. The reason this is brought here is because this is Rabbi Bana. Other than that tangent about the guy with the beard, but this is a sugya about Rabbi Bana. So they came before him. He was a judge. So Amar Le'id L'chu Ara. So he asked them, "Did your father have land?" Amar Lu In. They said to him, "Yes." Id L'chu Chayvata. Did he have livestock? In Idluchu Bistarke, did he have, I think that means blankets? In Iachi Yachi Kamalu. No, he said that when your father said, dust, it meant land. And when he said bones, he meant the livestock. And when he said wool, he meant the quilts. Okay, so divide up those different things. Okay, we'll see now Rabbi Bana's wisdom on full display as a judge. Hahu Gavra, the Shama the Bitu, the Ka'amar Levarta, Amai Lat Siniat Beisura. So one time a guy overheard his wife gossiping with their daughter, and the wife said to the daughter, if you're going around and doing illicit activities, why are you doing it without taking proper caution? Look at me. I have 10 sons, and only one of them belongs to your father. Okay? So what happens? So Kishachev. So then, when the man was on his deathbed, the husband, Amar lehu kol nichsai lechad bra. He said, all my property should just go to the 1 out of 10 sons that's my blood son. Right? What's the problem? Lo yadeh. I mean, nobody knew which one it was. Okay.
She was supposed to know.
What?
She was supposed to
Yeah, I don't know why they don't ask the wife. That's not in the
Maybe she
story.
already died.
Yeah, could be.
Why don't you just do like a DNA check,
Maybe she's like, no, everybody belongs to him.
Maybe he killed her.
Rabbi Bana has a better solution than the DNA check. Okay, so
yeah.
he says, Atu l'kamid Rabbi Bana. They said, what should we do? So Amar lehu, Zilu chavutu kivra davuchon ad dekayu megale lechu l'haiminaychu shavka. So everyone go beat your father's grave until he rises up from the dead, and he tells you guys which one of you is his
Don't
son.
wake him up.
know.
Well, but they assume once he died, he found out, right? So azalu kulhu, so they go, right? Ahu divrei lahav azu, but one of the sons didn't go. Why? Because he had something about it made him uncomfortable. So amalu kulu nichsedai. So he said, this reminds us of the story of Shlomo with the baby, right?
It sounds more like the story, Afan the thief, ואז מישהו מנגב את הידיים שלו במגבת של החבר.
אני לא מכיר.
אתה לא מכיר לסיפור החסידי?
לא.
אז אחרי זה אני אספר.
Van Gannen brennt de hittel.
What?
Another point.
Okay. Anyway.
The guy got up and said the person who stole
Yeah,
in
exactly.
shul, his hat is on fire. If Van Gannen brennt
See where we
de
are?
hittel. And then a guy went like this.
Wait, I missed it. What did he
Is that
The
local?
rabbi, they were trying to find who stole
That's
whatever.
a
So he said the person who stole, his hat is on
That's
fire.
right, you check
And
it
one
out.
guy right away went,
Very good.
in Yiddish, Van Gannen brennt de hittel.
Yes, exactly.
That's chacham enough, though.
That's chokhmah. Good. I mean, that's kind of what's going on here, in a way, right?
It's all just intuition, because how would the kid know? It was just a sense.
Right. He had.
Paternal.
You're saying with Shlomo, the mom knew for real.
Right.
Here, it was some instinct, right?
Yeah.
So in Shlomo, we don't
Yeah.
actually know who took the son in the end.
What?
The real mom or the anyway.
Okay.
I don't know.
In any event,
More
so
than
the
2
other-
years ago, but
The other 9 brothers were displeased with this decision of Rabbi Bana. Azlu achalu kurtza b'malka. So they went and they complained to the local government. Ba'amre ika gavra chad b'yudai. There's a Jewish judge. The kamafik mamona mi'nashe b'lasade b'lamideh. And he goes and he renders judgment. And he takes money from one person to another without witnesses, without proper jurisprudence. So without without evidence. Okay. So what happens? Aitu chavshu. So they throw Rabbi Bana in jail. Okay. Azla debetu. So Rabbi Bana's wife comes to the government. Ve'amrelehu. So she says to them, Avdachad havali. I had a servant. Psaku l'reshe. They cut off his head. Upshatu l'mashche. And they skinned his flesh. Ve'achalu bisrei. And then they ate it. Ve'kamalu be'maya umashku be'lechevraya. And they filled it up with water, and they gave it to their friends to drink from. But but they didn't pay me for the price of the servant, and they didn't give me rent. Okay? Lo yade my kam. So they're like, what is this crazy lady talking about? Like, what's going on? So Amrei, what did they say? Naitu de chachima de Yudai vilema. So there's a wise Jew that we just threw in jail. Maybe he can tell us what this crazy lady is saying. Okay, Krai Rabbi Bana. So they called him. Ve'amarlu zarnuka amarluchu. He said it's a water skin. In other words, like they used to keep like water in like those you call it, like those round things that you would hang around your neck, and it was made from. So we'll see. Rashbam says it was made from hide. So if you read kind of this whole thing is as an analogy of like there was a goat that you cut off and skinned it and then you drink the water from it. So see the Rashbam interprets it to be that's what that means. But in any event, he gives an answer. Amrei, okay, so since he's so wise, we'll make him a judge. They take him out of jail, and then it continues with a couple other cases that I didn't bring here. But this obviously reminds us of a different story, I would think.
Yosef.
Right. Okay. In other words, they took him out of the pit, out of jail, for having the wisdom to interpret an unintelligible statement. Okay. So we have here these stories about Rabbi Bana that are, some of them are quite fantastical. Others are callbacks to Shlomo Melech, to Yosef. Right. So this is a good set of Agarata. Okay. So Ad Kan the actual stories, and now let's just look at some of the Mefarshim. We'll try to explain some of the details. Okay. So the Maharsha asks, if we go back to the first story, the Maharsha says, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or the Bat Kol says, הסתכלת בדמות דיוקני, בדיוקני עצמה, תסתכל. So Maharsha says there's a problem with that. Why? Because he's telling Rabbi Bana that he's not allowed to look at Adam Arishon. Because there's something about Adam Arishon that's like, it's as though you're looking at the Shekhinah, right? But the Maharsha says, but a lot of people saw Adam Arishon. In other words, he lived 930 years and he had lots of descendants. So what? How come now Rabbi Bana is not allowed to see him? So Maharsha says, "V'ayin b'diokni atzma v'inyan b'diokni atzma tistakel af shekama bnei adam ra'u et adam harishon b'chayav." So even though many people saw him when he was alive, efshar de'lo hutar listakel b'diokni atzma ela b'doro b'chayav, that you were allowed to look at him when he was alive. Aval b'moto asur, but not once he died. Ki inyan ki kilelat elokim talui, right? That it's an abomination of God when a body is hanged, right? Again, the Isser. So Gam B'Shar B'nei Adam, there's something about seeing it, dead that is, inappropriate, and so that's not acceptable. And then he ends V'aven Zeh, because clearly Kasher Le'avin. It's not really clear what that means, to me at least. The Yun Yaakov gives us somewhat more satisfying answer, where it says B'diokni Atzma, in the Yun Yaakov on the right side, it's about halfway down. דיוקני is in big letters. Okay?
Wait.
You found it? Here, it's right here. דיוקני עצמה. This is in כתב רש"י, okay? בדיוקני עצמה, אל תסתכל, כתב מהרש"א, אף שכמה בני אדם ראו את אדם הראשון בחייו וכו'. Okay, that's what we just saw. ובאמת, לפי פי רש"י, בשיטה זו, so just as a side point, I didn't understand what the Yun Yaakov is saying here, where he says, according to Rashi's Perush, because if you know in Bava Batra, it's Rashbam. Why is it Rashbam? Because on Daf Chavtet, Rashi died. Rashi died as he was writing his Perush on Bava Batra, and Daf Chavtet. In some Gersot of the Talmud, it says Kan Met Rashi Zal, and then his grandson Rashbam just picks it up where he left off, right? So the reason why Bava Batra is the longest Masechet is because Rashbam wasn't able to be as taciturn as Rashi, right? He elaborates more in his Perush, so it adds a lot to Bava Batra. In any event, so when he says here, Pi Rashi, it wasn't clear to me what he's referring to, because Rashbam is the one commenting here. But in any event, okay, so he says, it's not so difficult. Lo kasha midai. The gdolim tzadikim u'mitatan yuter b'chayhen. This is an idea we've learned, I think in Goran Chulin we learned this. There's this idea that the tzadikim are greater in death than they are in life.
We know about Elisha when he passed away. Somebody came alive.
That's where we learned it. Very good.
Does Rashbam say that here?
I don't know. I didn't see that.
Right. I'm saying it's very possible
he just meant Rashbam
from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Rashbam probably said what Rashi said.
This concept clearly.
I'm
assuming.
I think you're right. I didn't know from where, but yes, that would be my assumption. Yeah. And yes, we did learn in the context of Elisha, who, when he died, he was able to revive someone from the dead. Okay. So he says, since tzaddikim are greater in death than in life, so then that's why it was okay for people to see Adam Rishon when he was alive, but not when he was dead. Okay, so that's one answer he gives. And he says, V'od yesh lomar, another answer, Lefi ma de'ita b'mefarshim b'yalkut daf vav, shezivo ishtana la'achar hachet. There's this idea that when Adam Rishon sinned with the Etzadat, so then he lost his Tzelem Elokim, or some aspect of the Ziva Shechina after his sin. A similar idea also by Chet HaEgel, right? That the Bnei Yisrael, they had the crowns, and then they lost the crowns after Chet HaEgel, right? When you sin, you lose a certain kind of splendor to you. So Adam Rishon lost a certain splendor. Okay.
Why didn't Chava?
Also Chava. Good
What did
question.
she lose?
See, it makes sense, because otherwise Adam Rishon won't be as a monkey compared to Shechina. Because he was a Tzelem
Why are we
Elokim.
talking about monkeys when
Kidmutenu
they look
that
like
he
monkeys?
tzalmenu, so it won't be should be exactly as a Shechina.
Maybe. I mean, I would still think...
Yeah, but the Shechina looks more like a human than a monkey. What does that even mean? What do you say?
I'm saying,
Why is the human image more refined than a monkey when it comes to the Shechina? They're equally as...
I would say that it's a good Messiah. It supports that other idea, what you suggested. In any event, he continues, he says, V'cheinu b'yalkut Reuvéni. Okay, it's interesting. Adam, achar hachet lo yazivo b'tzelem Elokim. Rak nimshal ki behemot nidmu. He was more similar to an animal than he was to God after the sin. Uv'mitato nitkaper lo chet'o. So then Yaakov says, but when someone dies, they're forgiven for all their sins. V'chazar zivo b'tzelem Elokim. So all the people who were alive in the day when Adam was alive, right, his children, grandchildren, etc., so they saw him after the sin, clearly. So he didn't have that splendor anymore, and therefore they were allowed to look at him. But after he died, when Rabbi Bana went to see him, he had already had that ziv returned to him. Therefore he was not allowed to look. Bediokni עצמה, תסתכל, כאילו ירני האדם בחי. He said that was a nice idea by the Yaakov. Okay.
Problematic subject matter here.
Elaborate.
It's someone on the king thing, taking it I don't know, very literal. It almost like he has the appearance of God. Very anthropomorphic.
Yeah. I mean, how much you understand all this, literally versus symbolic is a good question, but I agree with you. I agree. The Yaakov is making that connection by saying, Adam V'chai, in other words, right, in the Gemara it doesn't say that. The Gemara just says, don't look. But not that if you look, it's the equivalent of looking at the Shekhinah and your mortal soul won't be able to come to process it. It just means you shouldn't look because it's not respectful or something. But the Yaakov is saying no. It's because if you look at it, it's this level of divinity that can't be comprehended. So I agree with you. That's a good point. But yes, obviously this whole idea of the Shufrei, the Adam Rishon, Shufrei, the Shechina, and the Kof, and all that, there's some interesting stuff here. Okay, the Hakotev, which is the parish of the Ein Yaakov himself, okay, the one who authored Ein Yaakov, or Yaakov and Chabib. So he just wants to clarify, actually I should have brought this earlier, right? What does it mean that Rabbi Bana was marking off the graves? So I kind of said it before, but he adds what I thought was a really, like a good chap, like a Purim Torah twist. So he says as follows, okay, HaKotev, ובתוספות ובחידושין כתבו העניין זה, וכוונה אחד לכולם. All the Mefarshim understand this the same way. וזה לשון הרטב"א. The Ritva, for example, says, הווה מציין מערתה, פירוש לשמור עושי טהרות וכהנים שלא יהילו על הקברות. Right? Because a Kohen is not allowed to be in a graveyard, because then there's Tumat HaOhel, and so he was marking it off. So, v'yesh makshim. So then people ask the question, למה מציין מערה דאברהם ואדם הראשון, דהווה בני נוח אבו? The problem of Tumat Ohel is only by Jews, right? A non-Jew is not metame bo'el. How do we know that? This is the famous Gemara. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, he says, there's a pasuk that says, Adam ki amut be'ohel, and then he brings some pasuk from elsewhere. It says, Aten kurim Adam, ve'en nochrim kurim Adam. So Adam ki amut be'ohel, only a Jew who dies in an oil is metame, not a non-Jew, because a Jew is called Adam. So he said, well, מה?
אין תומת הרצבים או משהו כזה?
תומת ה... לא הבנתי?
רצבים, זה תומה שיש בחו"ל פשוט.
Because they don't mark graves, so
Ah,
it could be a myth.
I don't know.
But maybe you say a Jew is there and you don't know.
Okay, I'm not sure. But anyway, the question here is Avraham Avinu and Adam Rishon we're not Yidden.
Avram for sure wore a kippah.
Well, a Jew, meaning after Matan Torah, you're a Jew, right? So that's the idea. So then why is he marking off their graves? They're not Matane Bo. What's the problem? Okay, so what's the answer? Kedid Bava Batra. Okay, v'tirtzu b'tosfot Avram Avinu she'yan navi u'v'kiyem kol haTorah dino Yisrael, which is kind of like what you said, right? He wore most were. But what about Adam Rishon? Adam Rishon didn't keep the whole Torah, so this is what I thought was really, really good. V'chein Adam Rishon navi haya, he was a navi. Okay, but so what? V'lo od ela de'ovdei kochavim lav mitam ba'ohel mishum de'lo yikru Adam. V'yikru Adam. In other words, Adam ki yamut ba'ohel. His name is Adam, so he's yamut ba'ohel. He's the Adam. So he's included. All right, so that was very good. Very good. Well, is it Luchuki? I thought it was brilliant. It was so sharp. It was very good. Anyways, Ve'aran zal katav kayotze bazeh. So the Ran says something similar. Ela she'osif besof dvarav ve'katav lashon zeh. U'diver beinotam shecholek b'davar ve'omer de'lo kaim lanker b'shum v'rechai. The halacha l'maisa says like Rishon Bar Yochai, who says this vort, but he's actually a dat yachid. It's unusual that the halacha is dat yachid. The Rabbanan actually say that a non-Jew is also metamei bo'el. So the Beinotam, who held that it's according to the Rabbanan, which we don't paskin like apparently. So Elika Rabbanan, Damre Afkivrei Avdei Kochavim metamei bo'el. So you don't have the problem of Enicha. In other words, okay, he's marking them off because also non-Jews. All you really have to say is that Rabbi Bana held like Rabbanan. You don't even have to say like Rabbi Natan.
Yeah.
Right, you just disagree with Rishon Bar Yochai, and you don't have to rely on this idea that Adam Kimu Boil means Adam Rishon. That's a good word. Okay, let's finish off here. So, just that Zarnoka, remember it was or Zanuka, right? That mashal. So we said the Rashbam how he understood it. Nod shel or, right? It's a skin bottle of hide. And what she was saying was, Taish havali, I had a goat, v'gazlu mimeni, and they stole it from me. V'shachtu, they slaughtered the goat, v'chluta basar, they ate the flesh. Umina or, and from the skin, asu chemat, right? They made a bottle. V'shovim bo mayim v'shotim bo. So he explains the mashal that Rabbi Bana understood from his wife. But the Marsha says, why? So if that's the understanding, why did she give this mashal?
Right.
In other words, she gave some random mashal. In order for them to right, because she knew he was wise, but the mashal itself had no significance, right? So the Marsha doesn't like that. He says, "Lichora ein kan lashon chokhma, ki kol dvarei mefurashim al hanod chutz mima shedimar hataish le'eved." So he says, but really, if you think about it, like it's a pretty straightforward explanation. Other than you have to say when she says a slave, it means a goat. But like how much of a chacham do you have to be to make this analogy? V'lo yadati alma. V'yesh lefaresh. So the Marsha suggests ki ba'ata ken derech kubalna, that she came with a rebuke, an accusation, lifnei be malka alisha. So she had like a veiled rebuke to the king's house about the fact that they kidnapped and imprisoned her husband, Rabbi Bana she'aya chavush. That really the mashal was him, not a random goat. Ve'amra ken lo tzio mi beita asurin. So she said this in order to free him. Ve'amra avdachad havali. This is a great line, right? She starts and says, "I had a servant once." Right. So who's the servant? It's not a random goat. It's Isha Rabbi Bana she'ayta mitparneset mimenu ki kol ish chayav lasot melacha u'leaskir atzmo mishum mezonot ishto. The dad Rabbi Eliezer. So every man is a servant of his wife. So when she says, "I had a servant," she was referring to her husband. Okay, v'pasku l'reshe. What does it mean they cut off his head? Rotzei lomar shepasku oto al yedei tfisato miyod lahem l'rosh l'dayan. He used to be a judge. He was the head of the community, and they cut off his head, meaning they threw him in jail. Okay, and then he goes on, and every other piece of the analogy he explains why. But I like the Marsha. It makes more sense that there's more to the depth to the Mashal than what the Rashbam initially assumed. Okay, in the interest of time, we'll try quickly to go through this parallel Gemara in Bava Batra, and then just say a quick idea at the end. So Gemara Bava Batra is a famous story about Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, right, where Reish Lakish became from. He was a thief. Okay, so this is in the context of that story. And Rabbi Yochanan is described in that story as being very beautiful. He was a very good-looking guy.
Somebody jumped up the...
No, it was
מישהו קפץ מהסוג עד הנהר.
Right. Reish Lakish thought he was a woman, what? So that's the story. What I brought is the continuation of that story. Okay. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ana ishtair mishapirei Yerushalayim. I am what remains of the beautiful people of Jerusalem. Hi mandabai mechze shufrei Rabbi Yochanan. Anyone who wants to see what's comparable to the beauty of Rabbi Yochanan, what should he do? Naite kasa dechaspe. He should take a silver goblet, mibei silki, straight from the silversmith. U'nemalie partzidaya derumana sumaka. He should fill this shiny silver goblet with red pomegranate seeds. V'nadar le klila devrada sumaka lefume. And he should line the rim of the silver goblet with red rose petals. V'notve ben shimsha letule. He should put it in between the sun and the shade. V'hanu zarhuhe me'en shifrei Rabbi Yochanan. And the glimmer, the shine that comes from that is just me'en, the beauty of Rabbi Yochanan. That's how beautiful he was. Okay. The Gemara says, "Ini, is that true?" V'amar mar, shufrei de Rabbi Kahana me'en shufrei de Rabbi Abau. This is what we saw in Bava Batra. Shufrei de Rabbi Abau me'en shufrei de Rabbi Yaakovinu. Shufrei de Yaakovinu me'en shufrei de Rabbi Rishon. Rabbi Yochanan lo kachashiv. He's not on the list. He's not on the list. So what are you telling me now? Right. What are you telling me that he had this beauty, unparalleled beauty? He's not on this list of beautiful people. So this is a mind-blowing statement. Shani Rabbi Yochanan de hadrat panim lo havyale. Rabbi Yochanan did not have hadrat panim. What does that mean? Rashi says it means a beard. Rabbi Yochanan did not have a beard.
It was a woman.
Right.
Unless I used to have a woman with beards.
Okay, very good. Maybe that's why Rashi assumes that's what it means. Very good. I'm saying here you have a source of Rabbi Yochanan, Gadol Hador, he didn't have a beard. That's quite a statement, no? Anyways, but you're right. I guess that makes sense that he wouldn't have been confused for a woman.
Maybe he was a gushnik or something.
All I know. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan have a azil v'yativ ashar tefillah. Okay, it gets crazier. He used to go and sit next to the mikvah house. Amar kisalkan benot Yisrael mitfilat mitzvah. So when wives go, to be tovel before it's when they finish with the nida, the fig will be they'll see me on the way home to their husbands. They see me when they leave the mikvah. And then they'll go and they'll have, beautiful children, b'nei Torah, because they'll have the kavanah of me when they're with their husbands.
You didn't know much about genetics then.
So, what's the question you can ask Rabbi Yochanan?
Why?
What?
Why does it need to be? Why does it need to be so beautiful as him?
I
get why he's
giving a bracha. I don't know.
But also, it shouldn't be. It's not like a thing that women just do. It's like
okay, so Amrulei Rabbanan lo mistave mar me'en abisha. I mean, what are you doing? You're letting all these women look at you when they're coming out of the mikvah. What kind of, you're supposed? Don't you know you're supposed to have the head down? You're not supposed to ever look at a woman. What's going on here? So meaning ayin hara. It's an ayin hara for all these women to look.
No,
at you.
It's ayin hara for him. Yeah.
For you. You'll see all of these women when they're leaving the mikvah. That's not.
So they do ayin hara for you.
You'll be tempted. You'll see all these women. So Amar Lehu, so he said to them, Ana mizara di Yosef ka'atena, de la shalta be'ena bisha. I'm a descendant of Yosef HaTzadik, and there is no temptation of ayin hara when it comes to women. Why Yosef? Because he withstood Eshet Potifar. Tichtiv ben porat Yosef ben porat alei ayin, ve'amar Rabbi Bava al tikrei alei ayin, ela olei ayin. Okay, that he is exempt from the ayin hara. רבי יוסי בר חנינא אמר מהכה וידגו לרוב בקרב הארץ מה דגים שבים מים מכסין אותם ואין עין שולט בהם אף זרעו של יוסף אין העין שולט בהם. Okay? We have the story about Rabbi Yochanan. Why am I bringing this? Okay, so the Yun Yaakov, he makes a comment on this Gemara, which I think can shed light on our Gemara, which is Amar Rabbi Yochanan Ana mishtare shapir Yerushalayim Aval gav dekamer besamuch dehevna le'achotoi deshapir minai. What? Sorry? You don't have the third page?
No, I have the second page 3 times. It's okay.
Look again. Can't see anyway.
It's okay.
He's got one job, that guy.
It's okay.
Oh, he stayed for that?
Yeah. Okay.
All
right.
Mamash.
Thank you.
Mamash. Yeah. Aval gav dekamer besamuch dehevna le'achotoi deshapir minai. So this is right in the story. It's where he says, Rish Lakish, you want to be with me? I'll give you my sister if you're Chozer B'tshuva, and she's even more beautiful than I am. You just went on talking about how he's like a silver goblet with the rose petals and this and that. Why his sister's even more beautiful than him? Okay, Yesh Lomar derabot ahu yoter be'anashim mibenashim shedarkan liot yafot al-yedei kishutai. Right? So, like, it's more of a chiddush to say that a man has beauty than a woman, because a woman can always put on makeup, but a man, he's like a natural beauty, right? It's like not something that you can...
Nowadays also people...
Yeah, Ian Yaakov was, from earlier time.
Different generation.
Anyways, ve'od yesh lomar, or you could say, de be'isha sheker hachayin ve'hevel ha'yofi, isha yirat Hashem titala. Okay, ma she'en ken ba'anashim chokhmat adam te'ir panav. Okay, there's a pasuk that what lights up a person's face is chokhmah. Okay, what does that mean? V'ayim besota mishemet Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai batel ziva chokhmah. Okay, so when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai died, the glory of chokhmah left the world. Pi Rashi shelo yada perusho. So apparently Rashi says over there in Sota, he doesn't know what this means. The Igar Sinan, but Yaakov says if we have the Girsa there instead of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Sham Rabbi Yochanan Stam, that when Rabbi Yochanan died, the Ziva Chochma left the world. Nicha, the Kavanato Rabbi Yochanan Shaya Shapire Ugemir Vizeh Ziva Chochma. In other words, what the Yaakov is saying is that all of this discussion about the beauty is talking about Chochma, right? And that's what it really means.
Wasn't beautiful at all.
Okay, so they were allowed to meet Chacham that were beautiful, but by saying that Rav Kahana was me'en shufei the Rav, you're saying that Rav Kahana was a big gadol ador. He had a lot of chokhmah, but Rav was a bigger.
What would 100 panim be in that context? Or not the lack of 100 panim?
Good question.
He's talking about the tzaddik. No?
I don't know. That's a good question. I didn't understand.
No, I'm saying, was he after Rabbi Yochanan or before?
Who?
I don't remember who it was.
Rabbi Bana?
No, Talmid Chacham.
There is a morad that was benosh like mechoar, wasn't there someone?
Yeah, ואז איזה בת של אחת המלכים שאלה אותו, how can you be so ugly?
Oh, Rabbi Yeshua, no?
I think so.
Wasn't it
He was
that
a Tana,
someone came
בכלל.
to him and said, מי ברא אותך?
Yeah.
מי שעשני.
Yeah. He was a Tana, no?
So I'm
Rabbi
saying,
Eliezer
was he
ben
after
Yaakov,
Rabbi
maybe?
Yochanan? Before?
No, before, I think so. It's either, for some reason, either Yeshua or Rabbi Eliezer is popping into my head, I'm not sure.
Everyone was beautiful.
Chomikra, understanding Shufrei not to be some divinity that, in some kind of metaphysical sense, but just the wisdom, chokhmah, and that's what makes you beautiful. Chokhmat, it's a more rational explanation, and you can help understand a lot of this discussion. It might be then quite controversial to say that, right, the Chava bifnei Adam, kekof bifnei Adam, Chava bifnei Adam, kekof bifnei Adam. In other words, that Chava compared to her husband was like a monkey in the sense of wisdom, but be that as it may, that's how Yaakov wants to understand that. And just kind of to support that idea, there's a famous idea in Shabbat and of Kuf Yud Ben Amud Bet that has a similar teaching to what we saw. Amar Bizer, Amar Rav Bar Zimuna, Im Rishonim Bnei Melachim, Anu Bnei Anashim. So they're already late Amoraim. These Rav Bar Zimuna, I think they were later generation Amoraim. So they said if the earlier the Rabbanim were like angels, that means we're like people. Im Rishonim Bnei Anashim, Anu Kechamorim. But if they were like people, we're like donkeys.
Which donkey?
Right? Right? There are these stories of these donkeys that kept Shabbat and this and stuff. No, it means normal donkeys. Don't get crazy. But the idea is, right, that they're describing Yeridat Dorot in a nutshell, right? They're saying that the early generations were like angels, we are like people. That's another way of saying we are like Kof. If they're like Adam, we are like donkeys. If they're like Adam, evolution is the opposite, right? But using the Yaakov's explanation of Shufrei over there and applying it here also helps explain it. I had one more thing I want to say about how that connects to the idea of Adam Rishon, but I don't remember what it was now. So.